I'm honestly shocked how Yamada and the Seven Witches can tell a story with a character like it does in just one episode. This episode has me have multiple conflicting thoughts about one certain character in this entire episode. Noah, the new character introduced in this episode, the new witch with blue hair and has a witch power. Her ability and just her character. It's amazing how you can grow attached to a character in one episode. Like, you can usually grow attached to a character in one episode depending on the development and how they're fleshed out and characterized. But the way this episode was done, I was going through so many different emotions when I was watching this episode. At first, I was like, okay, this character's kind of like a tsundere. That's what I was kind of thinking at first. And then all of a sudden, it continued progressing on. I'm like, okay, this character's a bitch. And then as it continued on, I'm like, okay, now I understand. That's why the character's a bitch. And just seeing the characterization of Noah in this episode was just so shocking how it was able to be fleshed out in the time frame it was given. See, this episode is like only 23 minutes, and that's counting the opening song. So if you remove the opening song, you got about 21 to 22 minutes worth of content. And it's amazing how in these 22 minutes, 22 plus a few, you're able to grow attached to a character and have these conflicting thoughts throughout the entirety of the episode. And still tell a very conclusive story that really makes you understand what is going on and feel bad for the characters. It's so shocking. I'm stunned to see how this episode was able to accomplish something like that. Because, see, this type of content right here usually would be expanded to a course of 2 to 3 episodes. Because there was a lot of material in this episode if you actually want to dive into it. I mean, you have it to where Noah, we try to figure out her motive as a character. Like, why is she doing this? That's one major moment that should have usually have taken like 2 episodes or 3 episodes. But it took 1 episode, which it's not bad. Actually, the way this episode was done was something that it's rare to see in terms of characterization. But one thing though, like the way it was fleshed out with how we found out about her trauma with the flashbacks, I was able to understand what was going on with these minimum flashbacks that wasn't so heavily detailed all over the place. And that, like I said, it's stunning to see how a series can do something like that. So this episode of Yamada and the Seven Witches. Noah as a character, first impressions, as I said, I thought she was a tsundere at first, and then eventually I thought she was a bitch, and then this third part of the episode, like right towards the end, I'm like, okay, now I understand. She was locked in a room, she wet herself, she pissed on herself pretty much, and I mean, I now understand, like, why she would kind of be like that, and then come to find out the people she's hanging around was set up and framed, and they were pissed because of that, which now I understand. Now it's understandable. The only thing I have an issue with when it comes to this episode is that the very people that were saying, like, we were expelled, you don't know how we feel, and, you know, so forth, so on, you know, they were saying that in this episode. The only thing I have an issue with when it comes to this episode, it might be because of the way the storytelling was, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it up to the manga readers to probably let me know in the comments to see if I'm correct or not. But the way it was done in this episode, as anime only, when they were trying to expel the witches and just remove them from the school and stuff, that was kind of hypocritical in a certain way, because, see, they were framed, and that's what caused them to do what they're doing. And honestly, you could look at it as, oh, they have all rights, but no, they don't. That's very hypocritical. See, they're feeling like they need to be pity, like self-pity, like, oh, you don't know what we've been through, and different shit like that. You know, they were looking at self-pity. And then they were going out of their way just trying to expel the others, like Shiraishi and them, and I'm like, that's hypocritical. You're just doing the exact same thing someone else did to you. So, if you're willing to do it to someone else, you shouldn't bitch about someone doing it to you. That's what I'm wanting to say there. So, that's my only issue I have with the episode, just very hypocritical. But regardless of that, the episode, I think, one of my personal favorites, actually. Yeah, I think this is one of my personal favorites because Noah as a character, I like her design. I like her blue hair and the way her hair design is, and just, I like her design altogether. And I do like her personality. I mean, besides her, you know, at first, my impressions of her being a bitch, now seeing how she is, kind of, and seeing her trauma, and then seeing, you know, what she went through, now I understand. Now I understand how she is, and I actually do feel sad for her, and she's one of my favorite characters now after seeing this episode. She definitely is. She's definitely one of my favorite witches. Besides Shiraishi, she's one of my personal favorites, but yeah, Good episode. Very good episode. Tell me your thoughts, Chibi. I mean, how do you feel about this week's episode of Yamada and the Seven Witches? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Manga readers, please clarify for me. Was that similar in a way? Like the way the writing was and the hypocritical, students trying to expel Shiraishi and them, even though they were pretty much framed and about to be expelled as well? I mean, so please let me know. Like, is that the same? Anyways, love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.